The Prince by Niccolò Machiavelli is one of the coldest and most honest books ever written about power. How to take it, keep it, and survive when everyone else wants it for themselves. In today's video, we're breaking down his brutal playbook for control, strategies still used by politicians, CEOs, and ruthless leaders today. And most people have no idea they're being ruled by them. If you want to apply these ideas yourself, check out the blueprint, link in the description below. Now let's get started. Act 1. The Prince's Rise. Before you can rule anything, you have to take it, and that's where our story starts. Chapter 1. The opportunity is not coming, you have to take it. In 2007, Facebook broke the rules. They opened their platform to outside developers without waiting for regulation, without asking permission. That meant giving random app creators, game developers, quiz makers, even complete strangers, access to users' personal data. Names, birthdays, locations, relationship status, and friend lists. It was risky, but it was bold. That single move transformed Facebook from a college app into the center of the modern internet. Mark Zuckerberg knew that if he waited for permission, Google or MySpace would beat him. So he moved first and forced the world to catch up. That one decision didn't just give Facebook an edge, it made them unstoppable. That's the kind of leader who wins. Not the leader who waits, but the one who moves before anyone else even sees the opportunity. The book starts with a sharp truth. There are two ways to rise. You either inherit it, or you take it. And if you're the one taking it, you don't get trust. You get resistance. You'll have no tradition backing you, no loyalty waiting, just pressure from every side. And still, you have to act. There's no room for hesitation. The author has no illusions about who deserves respect. He says the leader who earns power through force, strategy, and effort is stronger than the one who inherits it, because they know what it took to get there, and they know how to hold it. It is much easier to hold power gained by your own strength than that given by fortune or favor. That's why he admired men like Francesco Sforza, a private citizen who rose from mercenary to Duke of Milan. Sforza didn't rely on titles. He didn't wait for permission. He didn't wait for a crown. He earned it through military skill, discipline, and strategy. And when he took power, he kept it. He ruled. Machiavelli calls these kinds of states new principalities, a place where the ruler is a fresh force. It's fragile, it's unstable, it's the hardest path, but it's also the most powerful because everything you build, you own. That's why hesitation is fatal. If you move slowly, your enemies organize. If you look unsure, your people doubt you. So when you strike, strike hard. When you lead, lead like you belong there. Because people don't follow insecurity, they follow force. They follow confidence, they follow the person who makes decisions when everyone else is still waiting for a sign. So ask yourself, are you building your own power or waiting to be picked? Are you shaping the rules or hoping someone will give you permission? Because in this world, boldness builds empires, and timidity just gets crushed under them. Chapter 2. Run it like you built it. When Tim Cook took over Apple after Steve Jobs, people doubted him. He wasn't the genius founder. He wasn't the face of the brand. But instead of changing everything to prove himself, he did something smarter. He stabilized. He focused. He doubled down on what was already working. And Apple didn't just survive. Apple became the most valuable company in the world. Now this is insane because most new leaders try to shake things up to make their mark. Cook did the opposite because he knew taking power is easy, but keeping it is the real test, especially when what you're taking already had a ruler before you. Machiavelli calls these composite principalities, places where someone else ruled first. People already had their own customs, their own loyalties, their own laws. They welcome you at first because they wanted change, but once you arrive, they start missing the old days, and suddenly they want you gone too. Here's where it gets worse. A prince is always compelled to injure those who made him prince. Because the people who helped you rise want rewards. They think they own part of your throne, and if you don't give it to them, they'll either turn on you or become the reason someone else does. That's why Machiavelli's logic is simple. Either live where you rule or destroy it. There is no third option, because if you rule from a distance, you'll hear rumors too late. By the time you sense rebellion, it's already a knife at your back. That's exactly what happened to Louis XII. In 1499, he conquered Milan, claiming it through his family line. But instead of moving in, he tried to rule from far away, through others. He lost it, won it back, lost it again. Because he never took full control and left others to govern what he should have ruled directly. Now compare that to Sultan Mehmed II. In 1453, he conquered Constantinople, then made it his home. He didn't rule from afar. He showed up, moved in, and became the center of power. That presence wasn't symbolic, it was strategic, and that's why he held it. But just being there isn't enough. You also have to look like the only one who belongs on the throne. That means keep the parts of life people recognize: language, customs, routines. But erase the traces of the old ruler, his family, his influence, his memory. Because if people still see the old leader as an option, they'll hesitate to fully follow you. And whatever you do, don't make someone powerful who can't be controlled. That was Louis XII's second mistake. He helped Pope Alexander VI rise and got betrayed the moment it was convenient. Whoever is responsible for another's becoming powerful ruins himself. Alliances feel safe until your ally wants what you have. That's why you don't wait for rebellion to become obvious, because once you see it, it's already too late. Political disorders are like a wasting disease, easy to cure early, impossible once it's spread. So here's what it means for you. Rule from within. Watch your allies like rivals. Spot problems early. Deal with them directly. And never assume people cheering your rise will protect your rule. That kind of strategy only works when the system you're entering is already working and stable. But when you take over a place that's falling apart, there's one thing you can't afford to share, and that's loyalty. Chapter 3. Split loyalty is a death sentence. When Elon Musk bought Twitter, he didn't wait to win people over. He didn't keep the old team around. He didn't wait to see what would happen. He walked in, fired the top executives, cut the staff, and rewrote the rules overnight. To outsiders, it looked chaotic. But to anyone who understands power, it looked smart. Because the people who built a broken system won't help you fix it. They're not loyal to you. They're loyal to how things were. And if you let them stay, they'll spend their time defending the past and undermining your future. This is where most new leaders fall. They try to share power to keep the peace. They make room for old insiders. They try to lead without making enemies. And that's when the knives come out. That's why Machiavelli warned new rulers. Power only works when it flows in one direction. But when loyalty splits between you and old allies, you and powerful insiders, you and the ghost of the last ruler, your control slips with it. And once you lose control, you lose everything. So what do you do when you inherit a mess? Clear the board, make it yours, start fresh, not just with new policies, but with new foundations built by you. But when you try to build something new, two enemies appear. The people who liked how it was, and the people hoping you'll crash. So you can't rely on trust. You have to build control. And that means no divided loyalty, no power sharing with people who want your seat, no hoping for applause from people who preferred the last ruler. Louis XII of France learned that the hard way. He allied with the Pope to secure territory, but in giving the Pope more power, he lost his own. Because allies are useful until they want what you have. So what happens when loyalty breaks and control slips? You only have one tool left. What if the only way to gain control is fear? Chapter 4. Make the pain memorable, then make it stop. Machiavelli doesn't flinch. He says cruelty, when used correctly, is a leadership tool. But good cruelty is made once, decisively, and with purpose. Bad cruelty is slow, emotional, and unpredictable. It breeds hatred. To see the difference, look at Paul Kagame and Muammar Gaddafi. In 1994, Kagame took control of Rwanda after the brutal genocide. He moved fast, disarmed militias, removed threats, restored order. It was ruthless, but short and focused. And it worked. Gaddafi, on the other hand, ruled in Libya through constant fear, brutal crackdowns, secret police, and public humiliation. But his cruelty was endless, personal, and unpredictable. So when his grip on power slipped, even his inner circle turned against him. The difference? One used violence like surgery, the other like torture. Cruelty must be used once and for all and be seen as necessary. And that idea didn't die with monarchs. In the 1990s, New York was falling apart. Crime was rampant, streets were dangerous, public trust was gone. Then Rudy Giuliani became mayor, and within months, everything changed. He launched a brutal campaign: zero-tolerance policing, mass arrests, and aggressive cleanup. To many, it felt excessive, but from a strategy standpoint, it was a master move. Because Giuliani didn't try to please everyone. He did what most leaders avoid. He used fear, fast, focused, and on purpose. And it worked. Crime dropped. The city stabilized. People, even critics, started to feel safe again. That's what good cruelty looks like. This is one of the prince's core principles. Strike once, strike hard, then stop. That's the formula. Because when violence drags on, justice fades and tyranny begins. That's the outcome every leader wants. Fear without hatred. Control without chaos. But the real genius of the strategy comes here. People will tolerate fear, but they will not tolerate hatred. Fear keeps you in power. Hatred gets you overthrown, because when cruelty is understood, they can accept it. But cruelty that feels personal is never forgotten. So if you must be feared, fine. But don't humiliate people. Don't steal from them. Don't make it personal or repeat it endlessly. Chapter 5. Never stand on someone else's shoulders. In 2021, the US pulled out of Afghanistan, and within 11 days, the entire government collapsed. President Ashraf Ghani fled the country. His authority, just like his army, disappeared overnight, and the country was taken without a fight. The collapse wasn't a surprise, it was inevitable, because for 20 years, Afghanistan's leadership was propped up by outside help. Foreign troops, foreign money, foreign protection. But when the outside left, so did the power. It was never truly theirs, it was borrowed. And borrowed power? That's just failure, waiting for the right moment. The author puts it simply. A prince who builds his foundation on others' arms or fortune is like a man who builds on sand. It looks solid until it's tested, then it crumbles fast. And this doesn't just apply to countries. You see it in business, careers, personal ambition. You rely too hard on someone else's name, their money, their influence. But the moment they walk away, you realize you never had anything of your own. Machiavelli breaks it down simply. If you're going to keep power, you need to be ruthless about who you depend on, not allies. If you rise through the help of influential friends, they'll expect payback. They won't see you as their leader. They'll see you as their equal, and eventually, their rival. That never ends well. So, build a base of people who depend on you. Reward loyalty that flows one way. And if someone can live without your success, don't hand them power over it. So what about the people? Can public support protect you? Not really, they're too fickle. They're easier to please, but far more unpredictable. They'll cheer for your speeches, your promises, your reforms, but the moment things get hard, they'll walk away. That's why the prince's advice is so sharp. Don't rely on love. Create dependence. And above all, never rely on mercenaries. These are the people who fight for your cause in exchange for money. But in peace, they're lazy, and in war, they're unreliable. When they're weak, they lose and take you down with them. When they're strong, they want your throne. That's exactly what happened with Francesco Sforza. He started as a hired commander, then turned on his employer and took Milan for himself. Machiavelli blames them for the ruin of Italy. Venice spent 800 years building an empire, only to lose it in a single day because of hired soldiers who didn't care. The popes hired foreign soldiers and were routinely betrayed. It sounds like old history, but you still see this today. You hire someone who shows up for the paycheck but ghosts when pressure hits. The freelancer who copies your idea and sells it to the next client. They're not soldiers, but they're still mercenaries. And if your strength depends on someone else's hustle, you're not in control. One by one, Machiavelli cuts them all out. Because real power doesn't come from favors or applause. It comes from building something so strong, it doesn't need outside help. To him, there's only one exception. The church. Not because it's sacred, but because it's built like a fortress, unshakable. Its power wasn't granted. It was constructed slowly, strategically, and without compromise by men like Alexander VI and Cesare Borgia. So here's the final rule. If your power doesn't come from you, it won't last. Borrowed strength breaks. So build something of your own that no one can take away. But how do you actually do that? Act 2. The Prince's Rule. Taking power is just the beginning. Now comes the hard part, holding it. Chapter 6. Power isn't given. It's what happens when you can't be ignored. In the 1980s and early 90s, Escobar led the Medellin cartel, one of the most powerful drug empires in the world. He controlled 80% of the global cocaine trade, made billions, and turned parts of Colombia into his personal kingdom. Pablo Escobar didn't just rise because people let him. He rose because no one could stop him. He built his own empire, armed men, paid loyalty, entire neighborhoods that answered only to him. And when the Colombian government came after him, he didn't hide. He bombed buildings, killed judges, bribed police, and declared war. Because for a moment in history, Escobar had what even presidents struggle to hold: direct, personal control over violence. While government orders moved through laws and generals, one word from him, and it was done. That's the real test of power. Not how many people clap for you, but how many act when you speak. Machiavelli makes one thing clear: you don't truly have power unless you control the strength behind it. Power is your authority. Strength is what holds it up. Your tools, your systems, your people. And if someone else controls that foundation, then they're the ones in charge, not you. And most people in power don't control the strength. Presidents are elected. CEOs are hired. Their authority depends on approval, not command. And it's the same in business. Think of a startup founder. He's got the pitch, the product, the momentum. But the tech, built by freelancers. The brand, handled by an agency. The vision, shaped by investors. On paper, it's his company, but the power, fragmented. And when something breaks, he can't fix it, because he never built the foundation himself. That's why Machiavelli insisted, own the foundation. Real power starts when you stop outsourcing the essentials. Know how everything works and be able to rebuild it if needed. Only then can you let others help. Not because you need them to survive, but because they're building on something that's already yours. And the more of that you own, the harder it is for anyone to take it away. Power isn't a title, it's ownership. But even strength you built from scratch can collapse if you trust the wrong smile. Chapter 7. The Prince is a Predator. When Russia invaded Crimea in 2014, there were no flags, no announcements, no official war, just masked men, fake news, and silence from the world. By the time anyone realized what was happening, it was already over. Resistance rose, but Putin was ready. He mobilized troops, crushed opposition, and dared the world to stop him. Because that's the play. If you want to win, don't fight fair. Act like a predator. Machiavelli doesn't say a ruler should be good. He says a ruler should survive. And survival doesn't come from being kind. It comes from knowing when to strike and when to sneak. He gives us two symbols: the lion to frighten the wolves, and the fox to recognize traps. The lion is raw power. Strength that intimidates, strikes, and silences threats. But power alone is blind. It steps into danger it doesn't see. That's where the fox comes in. The fox is alert, strategic. It smells betrayal before it arrives. It wins because it understands the rules and knows when to break them. But the fox can't fight off wolves. That's why you need both. Force to defend your power, cunning to protect it. But cunning isn't just about spotting traps. It's also about controlling appearances. Because when you can't overpower your enemies, you mislead them. That's where the fox really shines. It lies when needed, flatters when useful, and survives manipulating what others see. And that brings us to one of Machiavelli's most uncomfortable truths. He says a prince must know when to break his word, not for fun, not recklessly, but when the reason behind the promise disappears. Because in a world full of liars, refusing to lie makes you their next victim. People say they want honesty, but what they really want is someone who gets results. This is where Machiavelli flips morality upside down. Some things that look like virtues will ruin you. Some things that look like vices will save you. People don't judge your actions. They judge your appearance. So don't just be good, look good. Don't be truly generous. Just appear generous. Don't be honest. Just sound honest. If people feel protected and proud of your leadership, they'll forgive almost anything. In the end, the ideal ruler is part man, part beast. The man uses law, logic, and diplomacy. The beast uses instinct, fear, and force. Together, they create a ruler who can think and survive. And this isn't just about kings. You see it every day. The employee who plays only by the rules gets overlooked. The one who's only aggressive gets ignored. The clever one who twists the rules for advantage gets labeled manipulative. But the one who rises, they know how to move between both worlds. They obey when it helps, break rules when it counts, and never get caught switching. But when strength and strategy aren't enough, fear keeps people in line. Chapter 8. Fear is safer than love. Why does Kim Jong-un still rule North Korea, while Gaddafi ended up dragged through the streets? Gaddafi tried to play nice with the West. He gave up his nuclear program and opened up diplomacy because he wanted to be liked. He thought earning favor would protect him. But when protests erupted in Libya, NATO bombed him. Rebels hunted him. His people turned on him. And the man who once tried to make peace died begging for mercy. Kim Jong-un chose the opposite. He rules through pure fear. Executions, prison camps, missile tests. No charm, no diplomacy, just fear. He's not loved, not even close. But no one dares to move against him. And that's exactly why he's still in charge. This is one of Machiavelli's most brutal lessons and one of his most famous. It is much safer to be feared than loved if you must choose. It's not about being cruel for fun, it's about control. Because love is conditional. It depends on loyalty, emotion, gratitude. But fear? Fear depends on consequences, and consequences can be enforced. You see this every day. The manager who tries to be everyone's friend eventually gets ignored. Deadlines are missed. Standards drop. Because there's no fear of consequences. Now compare that to the one who sets clear expectations and backs them up. They're not always liked, but they're respected, and the work gets done. The author doesn't say love is useless. In an ideal world, you'd be both, loved and feared. But in the real world, that's rare. And when you have to choose, fear is more reliable. But there's a catch. Fear must never turn into hatred. Fear is useful. Hatred is fatal. So what's the balance? You use fear with precision, not to humiliate, not to bully, but to create structure people can trust. As seen earlier, don't cross personal lines. Don't humiliate people in front of others. Don't make it emotional or petty. Set boundaries calmly, clearly, and enforce them when needed. And once it's done, move on. Don't drag it out. Because if people see your discipline as fair, they'll respect it. But if it feels personal or cruel, they'll want revenge. Cesare Borgia understood that. It is much safer to be feared than loved. He sent a brutal enforcer, Ramiro de Orco, to pacify a lawless region in Romagna. Ramiro ruled with violence. The chaos stopped, but the fear haunted the region. So, once order was restored, Borgia had him executed publicly. His body was left in the town square. The message was clear. The violence ends here. It wasn't kindness. It was strategy, fear used with purpose, and it worked. That's the paradox. Kindness without strength creates disorder, but controlled fear creates stability and survival. Borgia didn't start by earning love. He created order through fear, and relief followed. It's exactly what Machiavelli meant. Fear builds lasting power. Love doesn't. But fear only works if people see you as strong, and that means mastering your image. Chapter 9. Control the story even if you wrote it yourself. When Russia invaded Ukraine, Zelensky didn't just fight with weapons. He fought with symbols. He dropped the presidential suit for Army Green, filmed updates from bunkers, walked through destroyed streets with his people, and without saying a word, he built an image, the leader who stays. Meanwhile, Putin stood alone in distant palaces. Gold walls, long tables, total silence. 2 wars were happening, one on the battlefield and one in people's minds. The second war decides the first, because public perception is the real battlefield. It doesn't matter who you are, it matters who people believe you are. And the moment they believe in you, they follow even when facts get messy. A prince must appear all mercy, all faith, all honesty, but be ready to act otherwise when necessary. It sounds cold, but in power, it works. People don't follow the truth. They follow the image. So it's not enough to lead. You have to look like a leader. You have to perform power without making it feel like a performance. Shape the story they believe, and they'll trust your every move. But here's where most people mess it up. They think looking good is the same as being good. So they chase applause, they hand out favors, they show off success, and if you give too much, too fast, without a strong base, you run out. And when you run out, your power crumbles. Machiavelli warns us, what looks like kindness can ruin you. What looks like cruelty can keep you alive. It's not about being heartless. It's about knowing when to hold back. Don't spend what you can't afford just to win love. If you want to look generous, do it smart. Share the rewards that cost you nothing, like partnerships or extra wins. Because the strongest move isn't always giving more. Sometimes it's saying no. Cut what's not working. Save energy. Protect the system. It might not look heroic, but it keeps your foundation solid. You see it everywhere. The employee who always looks busy, even if they're not, gets trusted. The one who sounds confident gets listened to, even without real results. Meanwhile, the honest but unpolished worker, often overlooked, not because they lack skill, but because they never learned to shape their image. And once people believe your story, you can lie, pivot, even betray, and still keep their trust. Chapter 10. Say what works, do what wins. You've learned how to build power, to defend it, to use fear wisely, and to control your image. Now comes the hardest move of all. Can you lie and still be trusted? In 2016, the UK voted to leave the European Union, and the Vote Leave campaign, a group pushing for the UK to exit the European Union, made a bold promise. We send the EU £350 million a week. Let's fund the NHS instead. Because the NHS, the Britain's public healthcare system, was struggling. So this message hit hard. It was everywhere, even painted on buses. And it worked. The UK voted for Brexit. But after the vote, that promise quietly disappeared. Politicians backtracked. The number was a mistake, and the NHS never saw the money. But it didn't matter. The lie had done its job. The mission was accomplished. The vote passed. To Machiavelli, this isn't a scandal. It's strategy. Because a leader's job isn't to be honest. It's to win. And if the truth stands in your way, then lie. But lie like a leader, not out of malice, out of necessity. Allies flip. Crowds change. Circumstances shift. So if keeping your word weakens you, don't. Break it. Quietly, cleanly, without guilt. But here's the catch. Can you break your word without breaking your image? Break your promise, but wear the mask of honesty. Betray, but look like a man of principle. Twist the truth, but speak like you're defending virtue. You can lie just as long as you still look like someone who never would. That's where the fox returns. The fox survives by spotting traps and setting better ones. He knows when to deceive, but Machiavelli says, the fox alone isn't enough, because if people stop fearing you, your lies lose power. They start to sound like weakness. So the fox needs the lion, the strength to defend the deception, because lies only work when people know you're strong enough to act if they don't believe them. This is why Pope Alexander VI kept power for so long. He made endless promises, broke everyone, but he wore holiness so well. No one dared to call him a liar. This isn't evil, it's survival. Because if you tell the truth and fall, no one will thank you. But if you lie and win, they'll call you wise. But don't get comfortable. None of it works if people hate you. This only works if people still trust you. You can be feared. You can be ruthless. But if the crowd turns on you, no fortress will protect you. Because your strongest fortress is your reputation. So how do you lie without losing it? Let people feel heard even if the decision's made. Reward loyalty when it costs you nothing. Wrap cold decisions in positive language. Break your word, but make the lie feel like a principle. Because in the end, people don't follow the facts. They follow belief. And belief isn't built on truth. It's built on the story you control. And if you control the story, they'll follow, even after the truth is gone. Act 3. The Prince's Legacy. You've ruled, you've survived, but will it last? Chapter 11. Look crazy now, be untouchable later. In 2008, the world was falling apart. Banks collapsed. Stocks plummeted. Most CEOs froze, cut spending, and prayed to survive. But Elon Musk did the opposite. Tesla was crashing. SpaceX was out of cash. And instead of retreating, he poured in his last remaining millions, launching rockets, building cars, and daring to compete with giants. He missed payroll, slept on factory floors, faced public ridicule, and somehow made it. He didn't just survive the storm, he built 2 empires through chaos. Most people freeze in that moment, waiting for permission or hoping things will calm down. But the bold, they act. And by the time others catch up, it's already too late. Machiavelli believed in fortuna, the wild force of chaos, luck, and timing. But he didn't think we're powerless. For him, fortune only controls half the game. The other half? That's on you. He compared fortune to a river. When it floods, it destroys everything. But in calm times, the wise dig channels, build walls, redirect the current. So when the storm comes, they don't drown. They direct the water. And that's what smart rulers do. They prepare before disaster strikes. They don't beg fortune for mercy. They meet it with action. That's one kind of boldness, building early. But there's another kind that matters just as much, choosing. Because when conflict hits, most people try to stay neutral. They don't want enemies, but neutrality? It's one of the worst moves you can make. Stay silent, and both sides see you as weak. If your allies lose, you look disloyal. If they win, they remember your hesitation. So, pick a side, even when it's risky, because bold loyalty earns respect, even in loss. And if you win, your reward is even greater. But boldness comes with a trap. Dependency. Being bold means building and choosing, but it does not mean becoming dependent. Don't rely so heavily on strong allies that you lose your independence. Support them, sure, but never need them, because when their luck runs out, they won't save you. You'll go down with them. That's why adaptability matters more than luck. The world changes constantly, and most people cling to old formulas, but fortune doesn't care about what used to work. It rewards those who move when the ground shifts, like Pope Julius II. At the time, Italy was ready to explode, caught between powerful foreign forces. France, Spain, and Venice were circling. Everyone assumed Julius would stay quiet, wait for the right moment, and negotiate. Instead, he shocked the world. He launched a surprise assault on Bologna, defying France, Spain, and Venice all at once. It looked reckless, but it worked, because he acted before they could react. Had he waited, he would have lost everything. That's the core of this chapter. Fortune favors the bold, the ones who move early, who take risks, who choose a side, who avoid dependency, and build while others freeze. But boldness means nothing if everything collapses when you leave. Chapter 12. Build a legacy that survives you. When Steve Jobs died in 2011, people thought Apple might die with him. He was Apple. The vision, the energy, the obsession with detail. Without him, how could it survive? But it didn't just survive. It became the world's first $3 trillion company. Because Jobs didn't just build products. He built a system. He trained a team, he shaped a culture, and he left behind a strategy so sharp that Tim Cook didn't have to replace him. Just run the machine he left behind. That's what separates temporary leaders from lasting ones. The ones who don't just rise, but leave something standing when they're gone. Machiavelli would have called Jobs a new prince, a man who earned his power through bold moves, not inheritance. And the true proof of that power? It didn't die with him. Because that's the test most rulers fail. They win power. They rule well, but they don't adapt. So when the world changes, they fall. History's full of strong leaders who didn't fall because fortune turned, but because they didn't. Men like Ludovico Sforza and the King of Naples, leaders who blamed fortune for their failures. But in reality, they lost because they got comfortable. They stopped adapting. They ignored their people. They relied on loyalty that no longer existed. And when pressure came, they hesitated, then broke. And this is where most leaders fail. They think legacy is about status, but it's not. It's about structure. That's why he said, the prince who relies only on what worked before will fall when fortune shifts. Because legacy isn't what you build when things are easy. It's what survives after the chaos. That's why new princes or self-made leaders can be more secure than those born into power, because they know how to fight, they know how to earn, and they don't assume the world owes them loyalty. So how do you build a legacy that lasts? You build systems that protect your vision, even when you're not there. You train people to lead, not follow. You expect the world to change, and teach your team how to change with it. And most importantly, you lead in a way that doesn't require your constant presence. Because if your power depends on you always being in the room, you haven't built a legacy. You've just delayed the collapse. But even a strong legacy can't save you if you hesitate when it counts. Chapter 13. Rule the moment before it rules you. In 2007, Apple launched the iPhone. The real risk wasn't the phone, it was killing the iPod, the product that made Apple a giant. Most leaders would have protected it. Steve Jobs didn't. He saw the shift coming and moved first, even if it meant destroying his own success. He listened to the right engineers, ignored the wrong executives, and made a decision his rivals weren't ready for. Nokia, BlackBerry, Microsoft, they were still defending yesterday. Jobs rewrote tomorrow because he understood one truth. If you wait, you lose the lead. By the time most leaders act, it's already too late. At the end of The Prince, Machiavelli drops the theory and speaks directly to one man, Lorenzo de' Medici. His message is simple. Italy is broken, divided, invaded, but if you act now, you could be the one to unite her. The core message is this: if you want to lead, you must act before everyone else does, because power doesn't wait, and hesitation is the death of opportunity. This isn't just about history or politics, it's about you. When change hits your life, will you act, or will you freeze, waiting for the right moment that never comes? So if you're ready to step into real leadership, even in uncertain times, start with your circle, the people you trust, the voices you listen to. You'll be judged by them, fairly or not. Choose people who tell you the truth, not what you want to hear. But more importantly, learn to separate wisdom from noise. You don't need to be the smartest person in the room, but you do need to know who is. And once you know, act. Don't overconsult. Don't hesitate, because the most dangerous trap isn't bad advice. It's indecision. Machiavelli distrusted rulers who listened to everyone. That's not leadership. That's drift. So here's your play. Ask for truth from a few trusted minds. Listen fully. Then act with clarity and speed. Because if you hesitate, you give the world time to decide for you, and the world won't wait. That's why the book ends with urgency. He saw Italy suffering, invaded, divided, humiliated. But in that chaos, he saw something else. A rare opportunity. A moment where someone bold could rise. And he pointed his finger at Lorenzo. You can be the one who rebuilds, the one who leads, but only if you move. You'll face those same windows in your own life. Moments when it's uncomfortable to act, but dangerous to ignore. And if you wait for permission or the perfect time, it will vanish, and someone else will take what could have been yours. If the present time is favorable and the future uncertain, let boldness seize the moment.